Welcome to the American Small Business League podcast with Lloyd Chapman and Bruce DeTorres. And with us is Amanda Bell, running for Congress as a Democrat in Wisconsin's 6th District. Her website is amandabellforcongress.org. I think this is your third time with us. Amanda, how are you today?
I am very well, Bruce. Thanks so much for inviting me back. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
We're going to have an intensely valuable conversation for you and your campaign. But first, set the table for us, if you would, Amanda, for folks who are meeting you for the first time, and no rush. Why are you running, and why you? What are your qualifications in any order, in any way, shape, or form, please?
Thank you so much. So I am the stereotypical Wisconsin kid. When you think of a Wisconsinite, think of farms and factories and, pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. So I grew up on a small family dairy farm just outside of Sheboygan. And then I worked my way through college. I got degrees in watershed management and natural resources from a state school. And I began working for the U.S. Geological Survey. At that point, I was a hydrotech. I worked my way up from entry level, slopping around buckets of river water to the point where I was managing projects, managing national studies, and became a manager and a leader in the U.S. Geological Survey.
Which is that's a federal agency,
yes.
right? Right.
Yes. So the U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, yes, is in the Department of Interior. What they're most known for is all the topographic maps that people use to do mapping. But USGS also covers the minerals and any mining. It covers drilling. It covers any hazards like major floods, earthquakes, volcanoes. But we're the research agency. We are the science. We're the nerds that actually do all of the work to make sure that Americans have the data to properly manage the resources, to manage the water, to manage everything that they need, and so that other agencies can do the regulations, can create legislation to protect our water, protect our land, protect our air. One of my specialties, I'm noticing the picture behind you. One of my specialties was actually algal studies. Like I was an algal specialist. So
what? What's that word? What's that word?
Algae.
Algae. Yes. So I studied algae. So the whole debacle with the reflecting pool is a little serendipitous at this point when they fired my employees and they canceled our contracts to study algae. And then they cut our funding. So
under the Doge, under the new Trump administration.
Under Doge, yeah. Last year, Doge decided to cut funding and everything for science and research. One of the things they cut was algal funding.
Nothing important.
Because algae is not that big of a deal. But it was kind of ironic that they went and fired scientists that studied these things, and now they're dealing with it. And if they'd have asked me, I could have told them how to do it right, but they didn't ask me because, they thought they knew better. But isn't that the story of everything, where they don't care about the people that know and the people that do? They only care about the bottom line, which is, I think, one of the biggest things that we can bring back to, like, talking about small businesses, where the folks that are in the trenches that are working the small businesses that are on Main Street USA, this administration doesn't care about them. They care about the big donors, they care about the big bucks, and they don't care about the people that are actually doing the work and know what's going on. So
I think I want to ask you right now to hit everything but small businesses, kind of in the Cliff Notes version of your appeal. What do you want the district to look at your website, and what do you want to do for them not related to small business? Take about 5 minutes to do that, because then I know we're going to spend the rest of this show probably talking about small businesses. So we're all ears. Tell us.
Awesome. A lot of the experience that I have is very applicable and relatable to folks. So again, I started as a college student working for the USGS, and I worked my way up to become a supervisor and then a manager. I oversaw a $33 million federal budget. I was operations officer, so I was also in charge of 13 facilities and managing 230 employees across 3 states. I worked with folks that were doing legislation. I helped write federal papers. I managed federal budgets. And I've worked with agencies from the local cities all the way up to international government agencies like Canada and other and tribal agencies around the country. So I know how to be comfortable in the boardroom. I know how to be comfortable working with Congress because I did it a lot in my former role. Um, but I'm also totally comfortable going into a farmer's barnyard and helping them figure out how to manage their dairy herd, or walking in the woods and helping somebody understand how the invasive species in their land is affecting their air quality. Another piece that I've been really working hard at is in Wisconsin in particular and across the US. We have had an influx of AI data centers, especially these hyperscale data centers coming into the district. And what I'm finding is that the residents don't have a voice. So they're asking questions, nobody's listening. So I've been going and I've been listening. And then I've been using my expertise in 25 years of water quality and my water quality experience to help the towns and to help the residents understand the impacts that these hyperscale giant corporations are having on their water quality. Because that's a piece that's been missing, and that's an expertise that I'm able to provide.
All right, Amanda. So I've worked on lots of campaigns. I started working uh, on the campaign for governor of Texas when I was in my 20s, right? And I've got just some questions here. Um, so how many people are in the Democratic primary in your district?
There's two. So there's myself, and then there is another gentleman who is a software business owner from just outside of Milwaukee. So
What's your relationship with him like?
positive, pleasant.
Okay.
We
I,
we have
I
very
think
different backgrounds. So
I think y'all should get together. In fact, here's my real thing. Every Democrat running in Wisconsin needs to join some type of organization where you guys have a common anti-Republican message, right? So as opposed to all of you trying to get all your stuff, there needs to be some type of organization, and maybe there is, for any Democrat running in Wisconsin, where you have some basic anti-Republican, talking points and facts that you can all use, right? And I would get together with this guy. In fact, I'd like to come to Oshkosh and talk to both of you guys, and because we need to beat Glenn Grothman. He's a
yeah,
bad man. Nothing good about him, right? And we need to
no,
beat him. And so I think we should come together with some basic anti-Glenn Grothman talking points, and you guys can, uh, go off on your individual stuff like that. But y'all need to have the same attack on Glenn Grothman.
the ways that he is not helping America and the ways that he's not helping Wisconsin, or especially not the sixth, are innumerable.
You said he's got the Israeli flag outside of his office.
He does.
Why do you have the flag of one of the smallest countries in the world out in the hall that has been determined by the United Nations to be committing genocide? His actions, what he does, he's more concerned about Israel than he is Wisconsin,
I would
right?
agree with that.
Wisconsin could use a lot more money for a multitude of programs, but Glenn Grothman wants the people of Wisconsin to give their money to help Israel. Let's talk about his bill.
It is
8511.
HR. Yep.
Okay, so in America, 99.9% of all businesses are small businesses. They create, I think, about 90% of all net new jobs. 98% of all U.S. firms have 100 employees or less, and most Americans either own or work in a small business. And Glenn Grothman is anti-small business. He's a Republican. First of all, Bruce and I can work on the documentary to educate the American people. It's documentable, not an opinion. I don't have opinions. I have facts. By the way, that's why I've won more lawsuits against the government than anyone in history. I won 110. And you can't win 110 lawsuits with opinions. I win them with facts, right? By the way, my win ratio against the government is 98.5%. That's like hitting a hole in one 18 holes of golf. It's impossible. I don't think it's ever been done before. So I think that gives me some credibility here, right? Yeah, we just need to educate the American people. Every Republican president since Reagan has tried to close the only agency of government to help the 99.9% of all American companies where most Americans work in the Small Business Administration, right? And
His new bill wants to wipe out, the goal for women and minority businesses.
yeah.
Mhm.
So let's
And
say,
disabled veterans.
yeah, here we are in America. Women are half the population. They own 43% of the businesses, and men currently get over 95% of all federal contracts. And Glenn said, that's not enough. I want men to have 100%. So
Mhm.
Glenn Rothman thinks that in this country, where half the population are women, they own 43% of the business, he thinks they shouldn't get any government contracts. They should all go to men. So if his bill passes, uh, men will get 100% of all contracts. And here's something, by the way, that I don't think you've heard about, Amanda, but the Senate Small Business Committee did a study about 15 years ago that says every 1% contract to small business go up, it creates 100,000 jobs a year.
That's
Well,
awesome.
the opposite of that is true. Every 1% of contract to small business that goes down, it costs 100,000 jobs a year. So Glenn wants to get rid of the 95%, excuse me, the 5% goal for women. That's 500,000 jobs will be lost. America's only claiming to be creating about 2 million jobs. That's a 25% reduction overall job creation.
And
For
and
what?
uh, and Amanda has been publicizing this lately on social media, but I just want to insert our Don't Cheat Women project, Lloyd, your conception from a year and a
Oh,
half ago, don'tcheatwomen.com. For the last year and a half, we've been pounding the bushes and trying to get as much publicity as possible for the initiative to raise from 5% to 15% the federal contract dollars that should go to women-owned small businesses. And now, Amanda, you really you're making hay uh, publicizing that Mr. Grothman wants to absolutely eviscerate that kind of assistance for women-owned small businesses. What are you saying about it, and how is that landing with the audiences?
Well, interestingly, I actually asked Glenn Grothman about it last weekend. He was at a function that we were both at. And when I confronted him, I said, hey, I'm really concerned about this bill because it's going to negatively impact a lot of small businesses in the 6th district as well. When I was purchasing for the federal government, I did my best to make sure that I was trying to purchase from women-owned small businesses, disabled-owned small businesses, veteran-owned small businesses, to make sure that we weren't only giving money to the giant corporations. And he first off said, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And I pointed out that it was his bill that he sponsored and put forward and has his name on it, where it literally takes out all recommendations for purchasing from women-owned small businesses, but also from the disabled small businesses and other minority. But what frustrates me is I'm getting some flack back from when I'm posting these things, and I'm posting them frequently to make sure that people understand, like, this is what our representative is doing, is trying to undercut the mom and pop shops that are responsible for 90% of employment. Meanwhile, we've got Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, and General Dynamics pocketing 95% of the contracts and purchasing. Those 5 defense giants spent over $17 million lobbying Congress last year. Like, that's absurd. And that's why we need these protections. We need this encouragement to purchase from small businesses in general, but especially from women-owned small businesses, because there's no way that these small businesses can compete with $17 million of lobbying. There's just no way.
And you posted a great video, which I downloaded, and I'm going to put right here in the middle of this conversation.
Earlier today, I was at the Flag Day Foundation event in Wabaka. I walked up to Congressman Glenn Grothman and asked him about H.R. 8511, the bill he introduced to eliminate federal contracting goals for women-owned small businesses. Listen to what happened. Representative Grothman, how are you doing?
Good. Oh, glad to see you.
You introduced Bill 8511 to eliminate the protections for women-owned small businesses, do you think that 0% of government funds and purchasing should not go through?
Look at that.
Well, you introduced the bill, sir. It was your bill, 8511.
Right.
You don't know about eliminating purchasing for women-owned businesses? Did you read the bill you introduced? Then why won't you talk to me about it? He didn't know what was in his own bill. He said I was mischaracterizing it, but then couldn't tell me how. Then he just walked away. Women-owned businesses in Wisconsin deserve a representative who reads the bills they introduce. This bill basically removes any requirement for the federal government to purchase from women or minority-owned small businesses. Women own 40% of businesses, and the federal government is required to make at least 5% of purchases from those women-owned businesses. But right now, they're not even hitting that target. And Grothman wants to remove any requirements for the federal government to purchase from those businesses. How does that help any of our small businesses in Wisconsin? The answer, it doesn't. But it does help big donors like Uline, Coke. Shall we look at the financial disclosures for Grothman's campaign? I'm Amanda Bell. I'm running for Congress in Wisconsin's 6th Congressional District. Help me so that our women-owned small businesses can be saved by the bell.
I'm also going to show a screenshot right now of our Substack article, asbl.substack.com, dated May 21st, that describes what's horrible about the bill and also the Senate version, and the phone numbers of Grothman's office, Mike Lee's office, and all the committees that I was referred to, and ask everybody watching and listening to print that out from our Substack, take 15 minutes, call all those committees, say, I oppose it for these reasons. We have a suggested little script, and especially for the following reason. We recently saw that every year, single digits, less than 10% of Americans ever contact their representative or their senators about anything. Can you imagine if everybody complaining about political things in real life or on social media printed out our little call sheet, had fun leaving those voicemails and talking to the chipper young little assistants in all of their offices and made the decision, I'm going to do that once a month. I'm going to do that twice a month about things that matter to me. Lloyd, your thoughts?
Fantastic idea. In a nation, in a country, in a state, in a district where 99.9% of all businesses are small businesses, and Glenn Grothman is passing anti-small business legislation, I would call that anti-American. It's against the best interest of our country. It's against the best interest of the people of Wisconsin and against the best interest of the people in his district.
One of the big things that I would love to see and that I'm pushing for is actually expansion of the federal employee health benefit system. Right now, we have 8 million people that are using the federal employee health benefit system, and that is working for everyone from the person serving food in the cafeteria at the White House all the way up to congressional representatives, the Supreme Court, and everyone in between. So it doesn't matter if you are a military family or you are a USGS scientist, you have access to a system that has reasonable copays, reasonable premiums, and reasonable prescription prices. And we don't get denied very frequently using the health benefit system from federal employees. If we expand that, we can actually save the taxpayers, including putting everybody that's on Medicaid on there, putting everyone that's on the CHIP program on there, and we'll actually save American taxpayer dollars because there'll be a larger pool. It encourages insurance companies to have more negotiated rates. It increases the number of procedures that are medically necessary that are not getting denied, and they could save money on not paying people to deny services, especially those medically necessary. The system's in place, the infrastructure is there, we just need to expand it. The other nice thing is that by doing this, it takes the burden off of small businesses. It takes the burden off of employers and the need to try to provide healthcare for them and their employees. So if we're taking that burden off of small businesses, especially these small businesses that are like, okay, I could give you a raise or I could give you health insurance, how much more would be available for folks to get in their paycheck?
We talked about DOGE. Oh, they're going to go out and make the government efficient, right? Half of all federal spending is for the Pentagon. Half. Doge never mentioned it. They never touched it.
Nope.
They're at the SBA. They're at the smallest agency in the government looking at SBA loans. Amanda, here's something nobody knows. Search on 35 trillion black hole Pentagon. They can't find $35 trillion at the Pentagon, Amanda. And Doge is looking at SBA loans. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. Most federal spending is to the Pentagon. Most of the fraud and corruption in government is to the Pentagon. Doge never mentioned it, but they're at the SBA, the smallest agency in government. The Pentagon loses more money every day before lunchtime than it takes to run the SBA for a year. The government's more corrupt than the average American could possibly comprehend. But I think you should become a super pro small business candidate and focus your campaign on that, because as a Republican, his party has a 40-year history of being anti-small business. It's documentable. We'll help you with that. And there's nothing he can do about it. He can't. He has no defense against that. The Republicans are so clearly anti-small business that he has nothing that he can, respond to, right? When I get as mad at people as do Glenn Grothman, they don't do well. They don't do it. The last time I did this, the guy didn't even run. He just gave up, right? I'll tell you a quick story, one of my favorite stories. Back about, 15 years ago, the senator from Oklahoma, Tom Coburn, was proposing to close the Small Business Administration. So I got my staff on the phone. We called every chamber of commerce in Oklahoma and said, if your senator is successful, it's going to pull about $10 billion out of the economy from Oklahoma and put all these businesses out of work and cost jobs, right? And we did it for weeks. Well, the chambers called Coburn's office and were complaining about this, but they got confused. They thought the American Small Business League was the Small Business Administration.
Oh.
So Senator Coburn thought the Small Business Administration was calling his district and complaining about his bill, which is illegal. The SBA can't lobby Congress. So he starts talking about it in the media, right? And which really was great for me because it really fanned the flame of what I'm doing. The bottom line was, at one point in time, his chief of staff called me and said, please leave us alone. Quit calling the chambers in Oklahoma and we will drop our bill, what it was to close the SBA. So at that time, Coburn was one of the most powerful senators in Congress. He was on TV all the time. And his chief of staff calls up Lloyd Chapman, president of American Small Business, said, please leave us alone, right? So that's what's going to happen to Glenn Grothman.
I love it.
We just have to say Glenn Grothman is a Republican, and they've been documentably, provably anti-small business for decades. Mm-hmm. And now, when men get 95% of the contracts, women are getting 5%, he wants to eliminate that.
Between now and the primary in August, Amanda, what's top of mind that you're trying to remember to focus on or do and accomplish or broadcast throughout your district between now and the primary?
I've spent 25 years as a public servant. I was a civil servant. My goal was to serve the American public. That is what I believe a representative should do. I'm spending time on Main Street, USA. Yesterday alone, I stopped in Oshkosh and literally walked up and down Main Street asking business owners, what are the things that are affecting you most? And they've never been asked that before. Literally not a single one has. They were like, nobody's ever asked us what's going on, what's wrong, what help do we need? And that's my whole platform, hearing from the people rather than the politicians, rather than these talking heads that really aren't listening to what the folks out in the real world are saying. One of the biggest things I want to champion is some of these antitrust laws, because when we've got 4 companies that are controlling all of the meat production in the USA, that's not competition. That is seriously just control at this point. When we've got seed companies, like 3 seed companies controlling all of our food production in America, we've got, a few billionaires that are controlling our media outlets and telling us what we can hear and listen to and how we get our news. None of this is okay. So one of the things I want to champion is busting up some of these big monopolies and these trusts and private equity firms that are undermining our Main Street USA, our small businesses, to actually give people a chance to have some competition, to have the growth and prosperity that we should be able to have in America. We are the richest company or richest country on earth. We should not have small businesses failing because they're trying to compete with these multi-billion-dollar companies.
You just really impressed me, because the last two or three things that you just mentioned alone would be worthy of an hour each. Those are sledgehammer blows that are of top concern to anyone who's made the effort to inform themselves about what the heck's going on, the food production, the meat, what the private equity firms are doing in a number of industries that are really tightening a noose of oligarchical corporate slavery around our necks in a huge way. So that really was really impressive to hear, Amanda.
Thank you.
Amanda, I think a smart campaign strategy for you is to so half the voters are women. He's proposing a bill to preclude women-owned business from getting federal contracts. If I were you, I would pick that as my main thing. I would hammer on that everywhere you go, right? What do you think about the idea of talking to this guy that you're running against and coming up with some common ways to attack Glenn?
I love that. I've been doing these coffee shop tours. Basically, I go and have coffee, invite folks to come and talk to me, and if talk to folks that are there just getting coffee. Most of these coffee shops are owned by women. These aren't just coffee shops. These are places of community where people gather. These are jobs for people that are trying to get on their feet. These are jobs for students that can't work a full 8-hour shift. These are jobs and opportunities for people to get experience so that they can get other jobs. When you have a woman-owned small business, she's not just doing it for the money, but she's doing it for her community. She's doing it to better the lives of people around her.
Yep.
And I think that's one thing that is often overlooked and forgotten. When you start talking about a mom and pop shop selling furniture versus a multi-million-dollar company selling furniture, the mom and pop shop care about every piece that they sell.
And I want to quickly put that in context. The American government, the federal government, is the largest purchaser of goods and services on the planet. They buy everything, including furniture. And for everybody listening who's a small business owner and they think, I don't care about this issue, I'm never going to apply for a federal contract. Wait a minute. You do care, because when those companies in your community get the federal contracts that they can apply for, they will hire so many new people that the economy will balloon in your whole area. All those new employees need haircuts and need coffee shops and need ballet lessons for their kids. And the big companies that get the contracts are already big. They create no new jobs with the small business contracts that they're getting right now. This whole thing has to be turned around. And it's such a great opportunity for it to be a midterm year with a candidate like you, who's not only wide awake about these things, you're going head to head with a guy who on April 27th introduced a bill to eradicate the tiny little 5% goal anyway, which the government admits they've claimed to hit that goal only twice in the last 32 years, since 1994, when that goal was first introduced. That means every year women-owned small businesses are really probably getting only 1%. But that's too much for Republican Glenn Grothman.
Yeah. By the way, let me throw something out here for Amanda that most people don't know that I think you should educate your constituents on. The Small Business Act that was passed in 1953 is the largest economic stimulus program ever passed by Congress for the American people. The 5% goal for women is an economic stimulus program. It's a way to direct federal spending into the middle class to create jobs, okay? And Republicans have been trying to repeal that program since Reagan. So the Small Business Act of 1953 is the largest economic stimulus program ever passed by Congress for the American people, and Republicans have tried to dismantle it for 40 years, right? And Grothman is anti-small business.
So the top three things that I want to do, first and foremost, when I get into Congress, one of them is the AI regulation. One of them is doing a pause on these huge AI data centers to make sure that we actually have the legislation to protect our citizens, protect our communities, protect our water and air, and bigger, protect our data. Because right now we don't have any legislation that's stopping these companies from taking all of our data and doing with whatever they want. So that's priority number one. I'm working with some folks. Priority number two is making sure that we are getting healthcare to Americans and getting access to healthcare for those that have lost, especially those that are being affected with that budget busting bill from last year, where they've had their premiums triple or quadruple in a year. So the third and fourth thing is I want to bust up trusts. If we continue to pander to these trillion-dollar, billion-dollar companies and allow them to continue to just buy up any competition, and they get to say what we eat, what we breathe, what we drink, what we learn, we're going to go down an Orwellian destruction. So
I want to take a survey. Is this a good length? Are we happy? Put yourself in the shoes.
I thank you, gentlemen, for being willing to talk to me and being interested in making sure that we have representation in Congress and support in Congress to support small businesses. And if anybody's interested in joining my campaign, donating, volunteering, or even just knowing more about me, my web address is amandabellforcongress.org. And yeah, they can find me there. So
Super.
And both of you hang on after we stop the recording, which I'm about to do. Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, Amanda, very, very much.
Thanks, Amanda. I think you're great.
Thank you.
And thank everybody for watching and listening today.